Hey everybody, we're back. We are at the palm tree disease testing site over here in Webster, Texas. And how did the test results come out, Eric?
They came back negative.
All right, so it wasn't something we were anticipating.
That's right.
That's
the reason we do these tests, so we can eliminate things.
Right, process of elimination. You know, of course we have to have a delivery truck pass by. That's okay.
Gotta get that Christmas.
So if it's not the disease, what was it? Bronze?
Lethal bronzing was the disease that we were testing for. I pretty much eliminated Fusarium wilt of palm based on how the tree's dying or dead. It's dead now. I thought maybe the trees were maybe mishandled, but the homeowners association has told me that they've been here 10 to 12 years. Now, I was in the beginning development of this neighborhood, so I guess time flies by really quick because I don't remember being here for 10 or 12 years, but they're saying that's about when they were planted.
Dude, it does time fly by quick.
So when we look at the trees on how the shape of the trees are, and I don't know if you can line this up, AJ.
Let's see here.
Look at the tree, come on this side over here, and you see the tree grow at an angle this way. There's an angle. Right, and then you see it's correcting itself, right?
Yep.
So this tree grew about 6 to 7 feet in the last, 10 to 12 years.
Okay.
So that means rough handling from the tree farm, trucking, and all of that we mentioned last time is actually off the table. I was going on the assumption that these were within 2 or 3 years planted. Of course, I was wrong with that. So now we've got to ask ourselves, what is the deal, and why are 18+ trees, established trees, declining when there's no diseases to be found? This wasn't the only tree that got tested. Several other trees got tested. Both live and dead trees were both tested on this project by other people. And what we found is that there isn't any diseases here, which is it's a pretty good thing. This is what they want to hear, is that there's no diseases. However, they still haven't solved their problem, and their problem is, why are these trees declining? Well, you look at these trees, a couple of them, and you look and you see all the stunted terminal spears, and you think automatically that it's going to be a nutrition deficiency like boron. But the fight against the boron deficiency is a pretty good fight, because these palm trees are actually sitting in the middle of a bunch of mulch and a bunch of organic matter. And so that's when organic matter decomposes, it feeds a steady stream of boron to these trees. So if a big rain came and washed all the boron temporarily out of the soil, which happens all the time, then you could see that problem. But since there's a limitless amount of boron around every single one of these trees, doesn't matter how hard the rain's going to rain, it's going to not wash the boron to an effective level out of the tree. So we have to eliminate boron deficiency, even though we look at the trees and see a boron deficiency. The other thing that we got to do is then we got to say, well, what is a look-alike symptom to boron deficiency? Well, if you Google it, and you know what to do when you're Googling it, that's a big deal. But anyway, so when a professional Googles boron deficiency look-alike symptoms, they'll see herbicide injury closely related to that. There's been several studies and several reports from the University of Florida that state that auxin-type herbicides could be the reason why it is locking out the boron in the tree, or causing a boron deficiency.
And so I'm not too versed in this, but I know there's stuff like auxins and gibberellins and glomalins and all these fun terms.
Right, five categories.
And so an auxin is a plant hormone, like you said.
Is responsible for growth.
And an herbicide is a synthetic version of a plant hormone that is designed to stop that growth, right?
Well, here's a funny thing about the whole herbicide chemistry is I don't think the people that are developing these really know what the consequences of what happens to the non-target plants. So they can build these herbicides. All herbicides are from synthetic growth hormones. There isn't a herbicide that, besides diesel, that is not a synthetic plant growth regulator. Okay?
Not recommended, but it works.
Yes, it does. Anyway, or gasoline or oil. My dad used to use oil back in the day.
All right. Just, hey, man, it's carbon. Just throw carbons on it.
That's exactly what he used to
Hydrocarbons.
say, yeah.
We're
Anyway.
just joking about that. Do not do that, okay?
Yes.
That is not environmentally responsible.
Right. And so our deal is what were we talking about?
With herbicides and
Okay.
synthetic plant hormones.
Right, okay.
Because what I've read in the past is that the way that the synthetic plant hormones work and are actually designed to stop plants from receiving nutrients. Like it almost, in a sense, the way I read it and pictured it is like it creates a capsule around it so it can't receive anything that it needs for proper growth.
And that is good basic terminology of what it is. But the truth is in the plant growth hormone world, 5 categories, 15,000 catalog jobs as of like 3 or 4 years ago when I last looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
The number's probably pretty much larger now. So what I was saying before is these creators of the herbicides, they go for a target species. And when they go for the target species, they're not really paying attention to the non-target species and what happens.
Right.
So they can set up the right hormone to be able to lock this plant out and starve it to death and kill it pretty quick. But what happens is all the other plants that are not their non-target all have a varying degrees of being affected, from like you can straight up kill it within 24 hours to it could be like a live oak when you use Scott's Bonus S underneath the live oak and the live oak overgrows.
So the other thing too, though, that I've learned, because I study this stuff a little bit, I love some soil biology and all that, is that not only does it mess with the plant hormones, right? It messes with the bacteria and fungi in the soil, all right? Which also play a huge part on how those hormones and everything interacts in the plant. So if you're screwing up your soil biology, you're doing it in many different fashions. Like you said, it has 15,000 catalog jobs. Right? And all of these jobs and these things have a very intricate network of how they work together.
Right. In theory, however, if it's a synthetic plant growth hormone, that means there's a bacteria that will decompose it just like they would decompose a regular plant
theory
growth.
But you know, one of the main herbicides on the market, I'm not going to name the name, most of us know, has also been patented as an antibacterial.
Oh,
okay.
Now that's a new one to me, and I know a lot.
So
wow.
You know, I've known that for
You're
a
gonna
while
have to
now.
You're gonna have to share that
all right?
with me.
Like, because I think about it in the sense of food, because I look at like soil biology and trees like the human body.
Right,
and the
right.
gut is like the root system. And the root system in a tree and in a plant is like the gut. You got all these interactions going on. And so when you mess with gut bacteria, it messes with your body.
The population.
When you mess with soil bacteria, it messes with the plant.
Right. No. Absolutely right. And if they have an antibacterial property or an antifungal property to them, then that's crazy. And I, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to believe you, because there's a chemical that you can use that is actually a fungicide. And this fungicide, if you put it on the root flare of the tree, will dwarf the tree and reallocate the sugars to repair the tree and slow leaf production down. And it was discovered by accident, and it was a fungicide at first. So a fungicide can actually be a plant growth, made from plant growth regulators too.
Well, because
So that makes
they
sense.
have very intricate interactions, just like you were telling me, like hydrogen molecules go down the tree and say, hey, what do you need? Right. Well, I mean, it's the same way in the soil. Like, it went down, it says, hey, what do you need? And it gives out little signals to this fungi and this bacteria, and they give it off, and they communicate, and they have this essentially like this healthy soil conditions economy of this trade being done in the process or the communication of exudates. Right.
So, you know, the funny thing about it is that it's so hard to get past, you know, thinking one way and then turning around and have to think another way.
Because I mean, these are very intricate relationships. Right. Just like, you know, you can't mess with one thing and not mess with other things.
Right.
So you know, sorry to have butt in here a little
No, this is your show.
bit. No, man,
This
it's
is
your show. It's our show, kinda.
Our show.
You know, like, I'll think about grass, he thinks about trees, but together we the bee's knees.
Right. Well, you know, this is actually all about the viewer, and hopefully the viewer can gain some information from it.
Right.
Be able to help with
but-
some tree myths and grass myths and stuff.
So, you know, one thing that we definitely agree on is, isn't it all about the biology?
It is more about the biology than it's not about the biology, and that is for sure.
Yeah, so it's
So-
not necessarily, because as we talk about trees and herbicide injury and how to feed them and care for them, a lot of things come up like, oh, well, don't I need nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium? Everyone thinks it's just NPK, and I'm like, hey, man, you need to throw that thinking away. It's not. It's about soil food. It's about supporting the soil food web, right?
Soil food
Your
web.
microbes, your biology, nitrogen fixing bacteria,
Mhm.
right? All these things that even phosphorus solubilizing bacteria.
Right. That's
Right?
that's a big deal. Yeah.
It's a huge one.
Plenty of phosphorus in the soil, believe it
So,
or not.
you know, every time you're telling me about plant growth hormones, like, yes, it does mess up these signals and these hormones in these plants, but I'm thinking in the back of my mind, how much is it making a negative impact on your good bacteria and fungi?
Well, here's the example of people using molasses for horticultural purposes. That is farm grade molasses for the cattle that has the sulfur in it, and that sulfur in that molasses was killing every bacteria except for the sulfur loving bacteria.
So
this is
that's
why you
one
go,
example.
This is why you go with food grade, because you don't want to do something that's going to knock off the actual target population of bacteria. It's food grade it's food grade molasses.
And that would go back to like even just nutrients and fertilizer, in my view, because if we get too focused on like one aspect, people say, well, AJ, don't I need to correct the pH in a lawn?
Oh,
Right? People tell me that all the time. And I'm like, no, you need to feed the lawn and the lawn will start correcting itself.
Well, here's the deal. This is for a video of another time, but basically every plant creates its own pH. And I've discussed this with you before, right?
Right.
Where as a part of photosynthesis, the oxygen breaks away from the hydrogen, the oxygen goes into the air, and the hydrogen makes its way through the plant, picking up grocery lists.
Yeah, right.
It
That
gets to the
communication.
roots. Right. Now, not all of the hydrogen can make it back or makes a connection, so it goes into the soil as potential of hydrogen.
Huh.
So that's where that potential of hydrogen comes from. That's why deserts have a high pH. I mean, a neutral or
And also,
a high pH, and forests have a low pH because the trees have done converted it there with their own hydrogen.
well, isn't that freaking cool?
Yeah.
So let's jump back to what we were really getting on, is based on the testing, the analysis coming out here, and the process of elimination. You know, it wasn't from dropping palm trees. It wasn't from lethal bronzing.
It wasn't from Fusarium wilt of palm.
It is highly likely that these issues are being caused by herbicide damage, which is also known as, like, you know, we call it poor cultural practices.
Right, and that's probably I'm not 100% sold on the herbicide thing, only because I know that they overwater the trees, right? So what you have to figure out is there enough of mulch and decaying matter around these trees to make up for the loss of the boron? And I think it is, but you have to include the boron deficiency as a problem, because ultimately it looks like boron deficiency.
So, kind of to go back to like the stomach biology thing, right?
Right.
I know when we are introduced to certain stuff that messes with our bacteria and messes with our body, it also creates like huge magnesium deficiencies. It locks out all kinds of nutrients.
Iron deficiencies in your own body, yes.
It locks out all kinds of nutrients. So I would surmise to say this, and Eric may agree with me, he may not, but my thought is this. Is it just herbicides alone? Probably not.
Probably
but
not.
That's a huge contributing factor.
Absolutely.
And you have other contributing factors. You can have poor mulch, right? You have poor other horticultural practices, because above all, what I find in both of our industry is that the whole idea of supporting soil biology is largely overlooked, right?
It's 100% overlooked. I mean, you know.
Well, we're like 2%, so not 100%.
Well, we're like 0.00002% of everybody in Houston that believes in that kind of stuff. So.
Well, true. Unfortunately, Houston's
I mean, how
pretty
big
good,
is Oba? How big is Oba? Oba has maybe how many people involved in Oba, and that still don't put us to 1%.
Like there's like 8 or 10 board members.
And then
There's like,
hundred
you know, a
members,
few
maybe.
hundred members.
Yeah.
Oba's a great organization.
Yeah.
What he's talking about is Organic Horticultural Benefits Alliance. It's based out of Houston. We've learned a lot, but yeah, right. There's industry wide, it's not taught, right?
They hadn't even changed. They hadn't even accepted into any of the ANSI standards for tree care yet either.
Yeah, or lawn care or
lawn care,
anything. You talk
like
to
that.
all the big lawn care companies, everybody who has these big trucks and all this stuff. Their first go-to thing is, you know, high nitrogen fertilizer, fungicide, herbicide. Not once do I hear these guys even ask the question, how do I feed the soil first?
No, or ask the question, why do I need to apply this material? They're not even asking that question.
Right, or what's the impact? Like, what's the
Right.
long-term impact?
The
I
long-term
see an issue right now, and I want to treat it right now.
Yeah, but they're not understanding what caused the issue. This is where me and AJ have this theory is there's a plant in the environment, and what happened in the environment that caused the plant to do that. And then we address that issue. We find what we believe is the causal agent, and we address that causal agent. And then once we address that causal agent, the plant, believe it or not, 99% of the time makes a full recovery based on us working on the causal agent. Has nothing to do with what the tree actually looks like or the plant is experiencing. It fixes itself.
So, to kind of swing back around, you know, there's been potentially some poor cultural practices on these palm trees, herbicide, definitely from what we looked around, seeing dead weeds, right? And I call them weeds, I do, because I don't really believe in weeds, but that's what they're doing. They're killing for weeds. One of the worst ones is nut sedge.
Yeah, they use that sedge hammer, and I don't know what the active ingredient is, and that is a deadly...
Sedge hammer destroys everything.
Yes.
That's something we both can agree on 100%.
But doesn't really do too good on sedge, though.
It doesn't.
So...
Right? So you're spending this money, you're damaging stuff. We got poor horticultural practices, we got herbicide damage, we got other environmental
factors. The big deal
factors.
is the water, and the water is a huge deal. When you're driving down the road and it hasn't rained in 2 days and you see puddles all along the side of the curb, you know they're overwatering.
Well, not only that, okay, if it's unhealthy soil, if it's an unhealthy plant, it's more susceptible to harsh conditions like heat and cold.
Yeah, and,
right?
and another big deal with the other big deal with overwatering or over irrigation is something that's overlooked all the time, and I bet you there isn't a single arborist besides me that has an EC meter. But what happens is the salt builds up in the soil, and it becomes, you might as well be sitting on the seashore.
Okay, I didn't know that.
You can build that high. You can build that high, and the salt will have a lookalike symptom to herbicide injury, which has a lookalike symptom to everything else. So this could actually be a third problem, is salt issues.
Which also I know for a fact, okay, because I work in neighborhoods just like you do, right? Chemical fertilizers are highly salt-based. So if you're getting salt from the water and you're getting salt from the fertilizer, you're literally salting the earth, which isn't it good for anything.
Right.
So it's a combination of factors.
Well, I understand that, but my contingency, if you look around this neighborhood, that they're not using the fertilizer to any extent to have a problem with. I think it's more of the herbicides and the overwatering.
So y'all gotta know I'm a grass guy, right? I deal with grass all day long, every day. It's what I do.
I don't.
Okay.
It's a byproduct of what I do.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
I didn't mean to step on you.
No. It's cool, because what I look at, and because I do deal with grass all the time, is like I can tell by how bad brown patch is.
Ah, how much fertilizer they're using.
Okay.
Right,
you got a lot of brown patch. You got a lot of high nitrogen fertilizer.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So booyah, pimpin'.
Yeah. Did you know that Microlife a product that we're not necessarily pushing, but it's a very good product, has a trichoderma in one of their products that actually attacks the brown patch and kills the brown patch naturally.
Microgrow granular is one that has a lot of that in it.
Right, the natural trichoderma.
Yeah,
right,
and
so.
even like the Humates Plus, again, we're not really trying to push that, but we do want people to know of better options out there, because if you don't know, you can't make a better choice.
See, the thing is, yes, and see, the thing is I've been involved with a lot of lawns with brown patch, and what happens is the fungicide kills all the beneficial fungi in the lawn, so it actually makes a brown patch worse because the lawn now doesn't have the nutrient base that it used to have. But when people go and they don't use the fungicides, but they use this trichoderma, then the trichoderma kills the fungus and doesn't affect any other part of the lawn, and at the same time it builds populations in the brown patch area, and it makes a quick recovery as well.
Well, and it adds the trichoderma, and it helps, like, good quality biological inoculants add stuff that colonizes around the roots.
Yes.
And protect it.
Right.
And fight for it. It's basically like the lawn and roots immune system.
Chemical warfare.
Biological warfare,
right,
really.
Right, it's that word again that we come across.
Allelopathy.
Allelopathy. Yes.
Allelopathy.
Right.
So to kind of like swing it back, we came out here to talk about palm trees. We have these issues with herbicide damage, poor cultural practices, environmental factors, because we have had freezes, and if they're not really healthy, can't they be impacted by freezes?
They can. Their antifreeze that flows through a palm tree only to a certain degree can actually be of a lower quality if the tree's not getting enough nutrients. So a tree that can normally handle 5-degree temperature might not be able to handle a 30-degree temperature.
Right. So, you know, what is it that you and I use all over the place that is a good soil remediation and helps boost the resilience of your palm trees and really all your plants? It's good for oak trees, palm trees, pine trees, these trees, those trees, and your grass.
And Dr. Seuss's trees.
Who?
Well, palm trees and trees, yeah, palm trees, they love the humic acid, but what they really love is molasses.
So molasses and humic acid.
We're going to take that tree over there, and how messed up that tree is right now from the boron deficiency or whatever it is, right?
Right. And
what we're going to do is we're going to feed it molasses to the terminal bud, and the plant actually eats the sugar directly. I don't know if that's with the help of bacteria or the sugar directly, and it just poof.
So here's something that I've done a lot of studying on, okay? We have clay soils, right? Poor soil conditions, all this. So what happens when you use molasses with good sugar content? Within 30 minutes, you double the bacteria in the soil.
I'd have to say it's quicker than that.
It probably is, but the studies and the things that I've read say in a given area that you feed molasses to the soil, you more than double the bacterial population. That means you got double of millions and billions of little guys working for you to help solubilize nutrients, protect your roots, and feed your plant at a biological level.
So usually I make all my products at my residence's place, at wherever my client is at, right?
Yeah.
But if I feel that there's a particular problem and they don't have enough of a microbial situation like bacteria, I'll make it at my house, or I'll make it at another customer's house. And by the time I show up, you could smell the difference in the material by the time I've made it and by the time I apply it. It's a completely different material. You can smell it.
I do want to say, we do this, right? I don't recommend it for any of you, because as good as it is when we do it, it can go very bad.
Very quick.
Right? Anaerobic, or it can turn into alcohol if you let it sit. I made that mistake a couple times.
Alcohol, poisonous to the trees and plants, it kills them.
Ruins the roots, right? So, yes, like you can get humic acid. You can get molasses from the grocery store.
The molasses part, yeah.
Yeah, you can get molasses from the grocery store. And mix these with water with a hose end sprayer and go to town while you're drinking a beer or something. It's very safe and effective to use.
Very simple, yes. And you can consume it if you want to, but I doubt I would want to.
Well, I have. I'm still here. I felt pretty great.
I do too, all the time.
Right. You know, we touch it, we live it, we breathe it.
It's all over my truck. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't hurt my truck.
Right. So you know, if you are having some damage of any sort, it's not a guaranteed fix, right?
Can't guarantee life.
And you can't guarantee nature.
That's right.
It's tough, all right? We have to deal with this literally every day.
One of the reasons I personally offer warranties with my work, a lot of my competitors don't offer warranties, because I feel that the customer needs to be able to be insured what they're paying for is actually going to work. So sometimes my product doesn't work the first time out or the second time out, but by the time I do it for 2 or 3 times, then they get exactly what they pay for and the product ends up working.
True. Well, because also it just goes back to, like, it takes time to remediate soil.
Right.
It takes time to remediate biology in soil.
Right.
Okay, so, you know, if you do a whole lot to something in a negative way, you're going to have to do a whole lot to remediate it.
That's right. Mitigation is very important.
So we're probably going to be back out here again at a later date and discuss some further things as the situation over here progresses with these palm trees.
That's right. And we're going to
Keep you informed.
Right.
Because our main goal, Eric Putnam's main goal, the board certified master arborist and the hippie who knows about grass, is that we want you to know better, ask better questions, and make better decisions.
be better educated.
Right?
That way a
Because
bunch
if
of
you don't even know the
charlatans-
questions to ask, you won't know the answers to look for.
Right. Hey, and the charlatans come to town and they tell you what they think you should know.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, y'all check out Eric Putnam, BCMA.com. Check him out on Facebook. Check him out on YouTube. And we will be back with you before you know it.
Thanks, AJ.
Thank you, Eric.
Appreciate it, man.